Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3.
Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 11:01 on April 3rd, Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. And this is a meeting of the City Board Liaison Committee. My name is Maria Felix Miller. I am Chair of HWDSB, and I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. I'm joined in the room by Councillors Jeff Beattie and Mark Tattison. Welcome, thank you so much. And online by Trustee Don Danko, who represents HWDSB as well. Trustee Danko, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Just realized I must be automatically logged in as my counterpart. So I don't know if I need to log out and try to log back in again, because I'm showing up as John Paul Danko. It's a shared computer.
Oh, you can change your name. So
Okay.
Can you try that for us, just for visual records?
I can try. Oh, I think I've got it.
Yes, you were correctly identified.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Trustee Danko. Other committee members who are not present, we have Trustee Paul Tutt, who I believe will be trying to join us later. He unfortunately just had a previous commitment. So I would like to now call to order our meeting. So good morning. We do have quorum for today's meeting, and I'd like to call this meeting of the HWDSB Liaison Committee to order. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during the committee meeting. And I'll just look to see if we have any staff, to introduce staff with us today. From HWDSB, we have Associate Director Matthew Gerard, Senior Manager of Facilities, Dave Anderson.
Through the chair, Chris Orstek, Director of Corporate Facilities.
Thank you so much. Just looking over to the legislative coordinator, is there anyone online that I need to introduce, or we'll see them later? Thank you. Moving on to item 3, approval of today's agenda. Just a small note for committee members, our presentation from HWDSB will be including a presentation in addition to the written report found in your package. May I please have a mover to approve today's agenda? Thank you, Councillor Beattie, seconded by Councillor Tattison. Are there any amendments from committee members to the agenda? Seeing none, may I please see by a show of hands all of those in favor? Thank you, that is unanimous. Item 4, declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we can move along. Item 5, approval of minutes from our previous meeting on October 30th, 2024. I'll give committee members a chance to just review their packages. Looking for a mover to adopt the minutes from October 30th, 2024, the meeting of the HWDSB Liaison Committee. Thank you. Councillor Beattie, may I have a seconder, please? Trustee Danko, thank you. All in favor? Thank you, that is everyone. We have no delegations, so moving on to Section 7, items for information. Turning to 7.1, the analysis of Hamilton schools with adequate HVAC systems. And I'd like to introduce Associate Director Matthew Gerard to bring forward that presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll work with the team in the room to display the PowerPoint presentation that I sent through. And this is just a visual aid for the report that is already in front of you in the package, just something to help us work through it together. So on the next slide, in terms of the background of the report, at our October 30th, 2024 committee meeting, there was a motion that was put forward by the trustee members of the committee that staff from the HWDSB be directed to share a summary of the monitoring activity with a report back to the HWDSB Liaison Committee no later than Q1 2025, and that staff of HWDSB collaborate with Public Health on the scope of the summary of the monitoring activities. So we're very happy to present today for information. Our response to the motion, as evidenced by the report in the package, and again, this PowerPoint presentation. So we were able to meet with board staff. Our board staff were able to meet with city and public health staff a few different times to have a conversation about the motion and what we could present as a report back to this committee. In 4 major buckets, we'll provide some information to the committee for consideration, and we will help to make sure that there's a firm understanding of said information. So if we can skip ahead to 2 slides. One more. Perfect. Oh, back 1. There we go. Heat event response. This was the first part of our report where we talk about our heat event response. So we have a procedure that has been formulated in due course of the HWDSB's operations to address heat events and provide specific activities and actions that should be undertaken at both the school level and the board level to monitor temperature and humidity. Now, the board has provided a number of different hygrometers to our various schools in order to make that calculation of temperature and humidity in order to monitor. The procedure also gives a step-by-step process for which principals are to monitor, spot check throughout the day, and furthermore manage temperature in rooms. So if there is not air conditioning, for instance, in a room, there is a process to rotate students and staff through cooled areas in the school, using shaded work areas in the building and other areas outside as appropriate to do so. So I'd encourage folks to access that procedure, which is publicly available, to really look into the details of what's there. As with all of our procedures, we work through a specific process to make sure we're analyzing, reviewing, and reflecting on those on a frequent basis to make sure that they are adequately meeting our needs. We can go to the next slide. With respect to our schools and what our schools look like, the percentage of schools with cooling as of March 2025, and I want to offer that this snapshot is exactly that. We are constantly in a capital renewal cycle, so these numbers, these statistics will change over time. But as of March 2025, 54 of our 93 schools have 85% or greater of their spaces that are being cooled. And then the breakdown of the remaining spaces are as follows. Now, we do have a number of schools that are at 100% and some that are quite high in terms of what's offered in terms of air conditioned space. So we can see the breakdown provided here, but also provided in the report as well. It's important to note that again, we have newer schools, we have older schools. We're working through that infrastructure through the funding that's provided by the ministry to make sure that we're upgrading our ventilation as we can, addressing the most prominent needs that are in our system. We can go to the next slide. This is the monitoring of our HVACs in schools. So our HVACs are designed and our buildings are equipped with building automation systems. These regulate and monitor critical building functions. In some instances, the BAS will help to perform or ensure optimal performance, energy efficiency, and occupant comfort. This is a system that provides us with real-time alarm notifications for any operational anomalies or deviations from what we have as our normal set parameters. The monitoring in schools is one aspect of the whole system approach, which requires on the ground or on site feedback from staff, students, to better understand what is actually happening in our schools. So that is a critical component that also allows us to monitor HVAC and their operations in our schools. And then finally, as we look at air conditioning in our buildings and ventilation, and as we combine those two frequently, oh, my apologies. Can we go to the next slide? As I mentioned, we're in a continual cycle of upgrading our systems, working through replacements, renovations, and ensuring we have improved climate control across our schools. We are, again, in a position where we have a number of schools that require some significant attention. We're working through the process of that renewal with limited financial resources from the ministry. Very grateful for what we receive, but noting that there is a significant body of work that's in front of us to complete. We frequently provide those updates to trustees as part of our budget process, which typically winds up in the month of June. So with that, providing the committee with an overview of the report and hoping that if there are any questions for clarification or any additional information we can provide, that folks are able to ask those questions now, and we are very happy to support. So Chair Miller, back to you.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Associate Director Gerard. So I'll just note for committee members, we're looking for a vote to receive the presentation and report, and through discussion, we'll decide if it should be referred to a future public health subcommittee for consideration. So first, looking for approval to receive the report. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So Councillor Tedison, I saw your hand, seconded by Councillor Beattie. So now that is on the floor and we can open it up for discussion. Right. Thank you. Councillor Tedison, please go ahead.
I see with looking at some of the stats here, 3 have 35%, 1 has 30%. These are the schools that have air conditioning and the percentages that they have in the school. 7 have 20%, 11 have 15%, 8 have 10%. Do we have a map that shows where those locations are so that they're not clustered in one particular ward or not? That would be important for us to know, because I think this came forward from some of the lower city schools, and just understanding what's in the capital for the future, if those areas are being addressed, if it is clustered or not.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Tedison. I'll turn to Associate Director Gerard.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. From a general perspective, they're not clustered. That's the very high-level simplistic response to that question. As we know, we do have a lot of newer schools in the lower city, on the mountain, spread throughout our fleet of buildings, for lack of a better framing of that. In terms of the specifics, happy to follow up with that in the appropriate way and appropriate format.
Councillor Tedison.
Okay, that follow-up would be appreciated. Okay, if we could have like a general map and just see that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I don't have a question that pertains necessarily to the presentation or report. Mine is more to next steps and direction, and I think I heard that there may be an inkling to send this forward to the Public Health Committee. Knowing that the creation of this report came at the request of a member of council that had a specific interest in it, and wanting actually your ward mate, your ward colleague from Ward 3, in order to allow that to kind of circle back in a way that our council colleague would have the opportunity to dig into it and ask questions. Is that where this would naturally flow through to allow that conversation to take place, knowing that we're coming from this in an assistive way? How can we better understand the needs of the HWDSB, and are there opportunities that the city may be able to help? I think was the impetus of it. So just wanting to honor the spirit of the origination of the motion before us. What is that the plan, and how do we bring this back for conversation that would allow our council colleagues to have eyes on it?
Thank you so much for the question. So first, I'll turn over to the coordinator. Do you have a procedure that you can highlight for us?
Yes, so through the chair to the councillor, after today, this will be referred back to a future public health subcommittee meeting, because the original motion did stem from that meeting back in September of 2024. So this will all be referred back to them for a future meeting for further consideration.
Thank you for the response. I will add that I know from our side, staff has been very enthusiastic about engaging public health in that conversation. I don't believe that full breadth of that conversation has had an opportunity to take place, likely because they are looking for it through the subcommittee.
Excellent. And that was just the clarification I was seeking to ensure that we honor the original spirit and intent of the original motion that did come forward, as you spoke to from the Board of Health, have it sent back to that, and that would allow that robust conversation to take place. And I see that Trustee Danko has a question there.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Beatty. Trustee Danko, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm on the Public Health Subcommittee as the education member. This motion must have happened before I joined. In our last meeting, my understanding was that this would flow back to council, and then it would make sense to me that council could direct this to a different subcommittee. I just was curious about governance procedures in terms of a subcommittee referring to another subcommittee. I was under the impression that this was going to council based on our last discussion. I also, maybe I'll pause and just get a response on that.
I'm seeing head nods in the negative, but I'll ask for clarification. Go ahead, Councillor Tedison.
Just Trustee Danko, I'm thinking that it would be best to go to the subcommittee for public health because we'd have lots of different eyes on it from the health community.
Trustee Danko?
I'm curious what the intent is, as given public health was invited to collaborate on this. I would expect if there was an opportunity to discuss this further from a health perspective, that there would perhaps be a public health component to what would be going to the subcommittee. But certainly I would be at that meeting and happy to engage in that conversation. My second question is around the language that we ended up seeing for the motion. I helped craft that motion. I just want to be clear that in our meeting, I don't want to set a standard for going forward for this committee that is not really appropriate from a governance lens. The language around the staff being directed to share a report as a subcommittee, we do not direct HWDSB staff, and I was very clear about that at our at the meeting when we had the discussion around this. So I don't believe this is exactly the language that we used in the meeting, and I know that the clerks, of course, take this away and frame it as we seem to be intending it. I think it's very important that we're clear that this committee does not direct our staff, nor do we direct city staff, but we can make recommendations that either go to city council or to our board. And I think going forward, we should be cautious about that. I think staff did this in good faith. And I just want to make sure that our processes are appropriate. So that's just a comment. My last point is I think one thing is missing from the report in terms of next steps for cooling in schools, and HVAC isn't all about cooling. Most of the year we don't need or require cooling, but trustees did move a motion to get air conditioning into every school and to use a different funding source as part of our strategic school renewal plan outside of what's mentioned here. So I think there's a more robust plan to go forward, because we do recognize that heat events, when they happen, are more severe, often more prolonged. It varies from year to year. Last year we were fortunate that we didn't have too many, but it's something that we've identified is important for our system. So we were absolutely taking this forward. Sorry, I do have one more question. Appreciating that this is the public side of things, I understand the city does have a subcommittee with the Catholic board. If something is going to public health, would we be seeing reports from both the public and the Catholic board? Because it makes sense to have that discussion if we're having it at the subcommittee level at the same time. Thank you.
And I'll just turn to the legislative coordinator for a response to your last point.
I can definitely reach out. I just have not received anything at this point.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Beatty.
I picked up on, and I think some good points from Trustee Danko in terms of doing this legislatively correct. So going back to the comments that this body doesn't necessarily offer specific direction to staff on either side of the ledger, board staff or city staff. just to ensure best continuity and appropriateness from a governance standpoint, then this report theoretically would go to council instead of the Board of Health, and then council could direct it to the Board of Health. Would that be the better legislative roadmap for this?
So this particular report, if committee wishes, will be referred back to the Public Health Subcommittee just to close out their motion that they've already put forward. However, my set of minutes will also be going to GIC and then ultimately council, so it still will reach council, if that helps clarify things.
And I'm also reminiscent of the fact that the previous Board of Health is what made this recommendation, which in and of itself was at the time comprised of council. We would rise as, you know, the Board of Health and go into these. So there may be just some previous frameworks that were a little sticky in terms of where we are now. But I absolutely do want to make sure that we do this legislatively correctly, as Trustee Danko's alluded to, making sure that we don't set an incorrect precedent accidentally. So I'll look to the leadership of the clerks in the room to make sure that we do that. But also wanting to just kind of highlight some of the comments from Trustee Danko to make sure that it's done correctly.
Thank you so much for those remarks, Councillor Beatty. Trustee Danko, I'll turn back to you in case you have any other follow-up.
Thank you. Some of those comments make more sense in terms of where it came from and where it was going back to in terms of referral. So, you know, if there is a motion to refer, that's fine. I can support that. I would hope that if a discussion was going to happen at Public Health, from an education lens, that we would be looking at as many boards as are working with the city and having discussions on with the city about this, because it's not isolated to our board that we're funded at 2018 levels for school renewal, which is not adequate in terms of maintaining and updating and improving our infrastructure. So happy to support that referral if that's what we would like to do. And thanks to Councillor Beatty for some of that clarification, because I wasn't aware that the change had happened right before I came on the Public Health Subcommittee.
Thank you for all your questions and your comments, Trustee Danko. And just to expand on one of the points that you had shared about the trustees' motion, I believe the reason that we didn't see it in the presentation has to do with trustees are still waiting for our own report at our own table, really to see sort of from the facilities lens, from the perspective of how much investment this will take. You know, we do know and recognize the amount of work to get cooling across our whole system is going to be multi-level, multi-year. So I'll just highlight that for the city, for the members from City Council. That is why you didn't really necessarily see it in this report, as it's a snapshot of where we are right now in our system. But as Trustee Danko has shared, she'll be, you know, more than capable to bring that information to the Public Health Subcommittee to help the discussion of, you know, how best the collaboration can work. I'll check in with committee members in case there are any other comments or questions at the moment. Okay, seeing none. Trustee Danko, I did hear you signal that you would be in favor of motioning to refer this report and discussion to a future Public Health Subcommittee for consideration. Are you comfortable as the mover? Thank you. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Tedison. All in favor? And that is everyone in the room. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation in that conversation. Moving on to item 8, our items for consideration. 8.1, the HWDSB Liaison Committee Terms of Reference. May I please have a mover and seconder to put the terms of reference on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Beatty, seconded by Councillor Tedison. And yeah, we all have it in our package, so I'll just open the floor to any comments or questions. Go ahead, Councillor Beatty.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Chair Felix Miller. Having served on this committee, and I think I probably spoke to this at earlier meetings, having spoken to the fact that I served on the committee as a trustee and now I'm serving as a counselor. So I've got a little bit of runway in terms of past practice of the committee and current practice of the committee. And what I've identified, Chair, is that there's a few bottlenecks in terms of how this committee is functioning right now. And I'll own it all on the city side that I think the bulk of it is in the way that this committee is currently structured in terms of our ability to be as nimble and quick as we'd like to be. And so there's a couple of items that, if I might, suggest that we could ask for some changes. And I understand legislatively it would be asking for a staff report to come back to the governance committee of the City of Hamilton, and I'd leave it to the school board representatives to take appropriate action on your side. I can't speak to what happens on your side of the ledger, but on our side, that we might make some suggestions, some opportunities for change that might streamline and make this a slightly more effective body to be able to do that. So if I might, starting with the, just going to bring it up here. Sorry, I've got too many screens open on my computer. Starting right at the very top, in terms of the membership, Chair, we have 3 trustees, and I see often 3 trustees in the room. Thank you for that. We have 3 members of council, the mayor and 2 members of council. And I think where the sticking point, and if I can call out the elephant in the room, is that the mayor has struggled to be able to attend. I did have a robust conversation with Mayor Horvath about this. She is very interested in the success of the committee, but recognizes that her schedule has been a major encumbrance in terms of her full participation, which leaves us consistently with 2 city members and a third, empty seat, as it were. It also, Chair, puts everything onto you as the co-chair of this committee, meaning that in prior iterations, there would be some balance where the mayor might chair a meeting, the chair might chair a meeting, and there'd be some back and forth. And that now, 2 years into our mandate here, has not happened, and has left the chair of the board consistently running the meeting. But behind the scenes, there hasn't been someone on the city side that's working on agenda development and scheduling. And if I may be blunt, that's fallen on me. and I don't legislatively have any skin in the game. And I'm not necessarily trying to, but I'm wondering if we could discuss some opportunities for some changes that might take the burden off of yourself as consistently having to quarterback everything, and also maybe codify an opportunity for other members on the city side of the ledger to be able to take the lead on agenda development and setting the meeting schedule. So the first item in terms of the 3 members of council, what I would ask for, or perhaps we could have a quick conversation of, and I have discussed this with the mayor, the change of wording from the mayor and 2 members of council to 2 members of council and the mayor or the mayor's designate. This would allow the mayor to still participate if able, but in the event that the mayor's schedule, as has been the case previously, is not able to, that the mayor would be able to designate someone to attend in her stead or his stead if we end up in a different position. So that would be my first kind of recommendation to committee that we ask for that change. The second change that I may offer is that there's currently 2 co-chairs, but there is no vice chair of this committee. And it may not be standard practice for a subcommittee to have a vice chair, I don't know. But in this case, should the mayor as co-chair be unable to assist with chairing or assist with agenda development, as has been the case, it would allow somebody, at least on the city side of the ledger, a vice chair to step into that role. And we could, as a committee or as councillors or whoever, come up with an opportunity for that person to be selected, myself or Trustee Danko or Councillor Tattison or whomever could fill that role, just to ensure proper continuity for, again, agenda development and meeting scheduling. So I'll start with those two pieces. I'd also like to get into entrenching quarterly meetings and having a more rigid schedule instead of the kind of laissez-faire on-demand system that we're using right now. I think it's important to have something on the books at all times that's predictable. We do it all the time here on our side of the ledger at the municipality. We have meetings that are scheduled. We don't always need them. Sometimes we cancel them after the fact, just before, if there's nothing on the agenda. But something more robust in that manner, Chair, I think would be, again, advantageous to this subcommittee and its ability to function properly. So let me start with those three items: the mayor or designate, creation of a vice chair role, and the quarterly meetings piece, and see what my colleagues might suggest, and see if there's any comment from clerks or city staff.
Thank you so much for those comments, Councillor Beatty. I really appreciate, I just wanted to say before I turn to a response, I want to say that I very, very much respect you bringing up a lot of that. And, I'm always happy to step into the chair role, but it would be nice for some of that work to be shared, but also for it to feel a bit more actively collaborating, right? So my one consideration around the creation of the vice chair role is, as I was going through our terms of reference for this committee, I had explored a similar sort of line of thought, that it would be nice to have either, another city councillor present or a designate on behalf of the mayor when the mayor is not able to join us. My only hesitation that I have around the creation of a vice chair role is that if the mayor is under the impression that they will be able to make the meeting, and then at the last minute is perhaps called away and can't, the vice chair could step in theoretically then, but we still might have a gap around agenda planning. So I wonder, and I know that some of your other committees, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know exactly the correct terminology, but I know that many councillors sit on different committees and have a annual position as a chair of that committee. So I wondered if that would perhaps address some of the needs around agenda planning. And what I mean by that is, you could have your three positions, but a city councillor who's actively decided, I'm prepared this year to take, the emailing back and forth, the agenda approvals, the items, having, a bit more of that, the information ready. I'm just worried if it's a moving sort of vice chair position, that person may or may not be part of all of those initial emails for that. But that's where I was thinking about it. It's still important to me to recognize that the city moves in different ways, and if the vice chair roles could fulfill that, then I would be open to have that be the designation.
Okay. If I
Councillor
could,
Beatty?
Yeah, I'll give you a reply on that, Chair, and thank you. Great thinking on that. I'll respond by, I can only respond based on my lived experience. I have served as the vice chair of a couple of committees. I currently serve as vice chair of Audit and Finance, for example. The vice chair is always included in the agenda formation regardless. And I think that we could set a term. We could make the term of the vice chair, should the position be created, mirror the term in which the counselors are sitting around the table. So I know that the HWDSB side, you renew these yearly. We renew these set in terms. So it would be the same vice chair. My expectation would be the same vice chair from beginning to end over a 4-year period. And going back to the agenda setting piece, we have robust review periods that we go through when we sit down and look over with the chair, the vice chair, and necessary staff in terms of filling out or coloring in the lines, if you will, with the agenda. And it is not unfrequent that occasionally the chair is unable to make it and the vice chair slips into that role supportively. So I guess that's the framework that I'm envisioning would be appropriate in this manner. Hopefully that has assuaged some of your feelings on that, but let me know if I've hit the mark.
Thank you so much for that response, Councillor Petey. I'm completely in support of that. If in your experience that has functioned and whoever the person would be stepping into that role kind of understood those associated responsibilities, that I'm comfortable naming it whatever it needs to be named. I will check in with the legislative coordinator in terms of procedure. Does this committee have the power to amend our own terms of reference, or does it need to be sent over to governance?
Yes, so through the chair to the councillor, we do have that power to amend the terms of reference here today.
Thank you so much. And I'll turn, Councillor Beatty, do you have anything else?
No. Thank you for that. I was of the impression that we had to send this forward possibly to governance, but are you saying that we're able to actually make that change right here, right now? Oh, even better. Okay. I like streamlined processes. I like the autonomy. There you go. So looking up there, or designate on behalf of the mayor, yes. And then where would we put a vice chair? Chair, vice chair. Okay.
So I've added a section chair and vice chair, and we can make that decision here today. And that would strike out having 2 co-chairs. Or alternatively, we can just rename 2 co-chairs as well. That's completely up to committee.
Through the chair, what I had anticipated is the remainder of the mayor and chair as co-chairs, and the addition as a 3rd position would be a vice chair overall, an overall vice chair. And that could be, as I said, it could be a councillor, it could be a trustee. I'd probably lean towards councillor because we have kind of ownership over the committee. So not having a member of council in the seat, I think would be a disadvantage to what we're trying to accomplish. So I don't know how we word that.
I think, Trustee Danko, you're probably seeing the same thing that I am, but go ahead.
I could see it. It's gone off the screen, but I think the problem we're trying to solve is the challenges the mayor has based on their schedule to attend these meetings. So I think we want to maybe focus in on how do we create a structure where it's the mayor and their designate or their designate. I'm not sure, like I don't see the need for a vice chair from the board side of things. You know, our chair has been able to chair the meetings for the last year, and we haven't had a challenge with that. So maybe Chair Miller, you might be able to articulate a little better what you're thinking, but I think we're on the same page.
Thank you for those comments, Trustee Danko. So I was thinking the similar thing. So I do want to keep the structure of the co-chairs. I wonder if there is appropriate language that would denote that the delegate, the designate, the mayor's designate would step into the role as co-chair and would be responsible for all of the mayor's duties as co-chair.
Sure, thank you. That's okay. I get that a lot. And I know Dawn is struggling to refer to me as Councillor Beatty. Old muscles are kicking in. A couple of thoughts. Absolutely wanting to maintain that the mayor and chair are co-chairs. That's the absolute intent of this. I think that's important. The designate position, the mayor could designate somebody to fill her space, and I'll just speak in the current tense, her space as co-chair in her absence. Doesn't necessarily deal with the lack of a third councillor in the room. And so that's why I'm trying to tease out the two, to separate that. We have two fixed councillors, the two of us currently in that role, Councillor Tattison and myself. We're here, we're committed, we're going to be every day. The mayor may, if she's not able, may assign a third councillor, for example, to attend and fill the role. But I am trying to still address that person may not be best suited to offer that additional support that a vice chair would. And if it helps to balance the equation a little better, because I think it's important that we are 100% balanced and collaborative in every way at this table. If there were two vice chairs, if there was a co-vice chair, one trustee and one counselor. I know it may end up being a lot of word salad, but I throw that out there just in terms of maintaining the balance. Therefore, Chair Miller, Felix Miller, if you were not able to attend for some reason and we didn't have an appropriate co-chair on the other side for whatever reason, on the city side, say somebody like Councillor Danko. See, I'm doing it too, Don. Trustee Danko might be able to, if in that role, fill in and having a co-vice chair on each side of that division, one for the city and one for the board. And not trying to overly complicate this, but trying to just set a baseline structure is this, that we have people on both sides of the ledger that are able to move our agendas along and speak authoritatively, get the meeting set, have some regularity, be that force behind the scenes that is pushing to get this committee brought forward consistently and in a timely fashion. So that is the intent. I see Dawn has her hand up there.
Trustee Dinko.
Thank you. And thanks, Councillor Beatty. I do have to pause every time. I think maybe we can tease this out. So, maintain co-chairs, and it could be like just between the mayor and the chair of the HWDSB, and then have a new section that says co-vice chairs, where the board and the city will select or elect a vice chair from the membership of the committee to serve or to step into the chair role and to support agenda setting. That way on both sides, especially if we go to fixed meeting dates, I can see maybe having more challenges around availability, because we have been able to make this work, but it's often been adjusted based on availability. So if we have fixed meeting dates, that does give us some flexibility. So I think if we keep co-chairs are the mayor and the chair of the board, but the co-vice chairs who would support the agenda setting, who would be in the know, who would be able to step into chair if whoever's turn it is, the chair or the mayor aren't available, that could work. The other side of it, perhaps for the membership, is the mayor or their designate, so that you can have a third council member joining in lieu of the mayor. So as in terms of a membership, but they wouldn't step into chair or vice chair. Like, as you say, you need someone who's intimately aware of the work of the committee and the historic work that's been done. Does that maybe help?
I just heard Councillor Tennyson say she's got it, so I think it does. Councillor?
Oh, I was just going to nominate
Well, I think before you nominate, I would suspect if we create these vice chair roles, this actually has to go back to our respective bodies to make that selection, I think. Or does it, can it be chosen here on the floor? Oh, it can't be chosen here on the floor. Well, there you go.
We're just going to forward this through.
I love this streamlined process.
And streamlining, I'd like to nominate Trustee Danko, and
First, we have to approve the.
I will move to approve that.
So sorry, if I may just interject. So this specific committee, we do not appoint or vote or nominate anyone. We're just changing the terms of reference to what we agreed to today, and then that's what solidifies it. So there's no nominations, there's no, okay.
If I could jump in, if we change the terms of reference and we do reference that the members will be, we can say it's selected by this committee for this committee because we are looking for membership on the committee. That's what we see in that's public health subcommittee in the new structure. The committee itself selected a vice chair. So perhaps that can be embedded into the language in the terms of reference that would allow this committee to be able to sort of self-govern from the vice chair standpoint. It makes sense to keep it flexible, to make sure that we can continue to work without having to go back to our respective boards. I don't think our board would take issue with a sitting member of this committee serving as a vice chair role. Again, thinking the intent is about moving the business of the committee forward.
Sorry, just looking to city staff for clarification on your last question, Trustee Danko.
So through the chair to Trustee Danko, nothing has to be brought back to anyone. We make the decision here today through discussion. So as committee members are discussing, I will amend the terms of reference here and now, and then it will go forward to GIC and then to council for approval.
Thank you so much for that response. Trustee Danko, do you have anything else?
Thank you. Maybe I'm missing something. So at some point, if this were to be approved as the new terms of reference, we will have to select through nomination or through discussion, but I assume through a vote, we would have to select co-vice chairs at this committee level.
You are correct.
From the membership. Okay, thank you.
Are there any comments or questions?
So I'll try to come back to the beginning. So we've made the change in terms of mayor or designate. That's done. We're maintaining the co-chairs as the mayor and chair. That's done. We are going to establish the role of co-vice chairs to be selected by this committee. And I think that Trustee Danko was looking for that language to be embedded into the definition. Once we approve that.
Sorry, are we able to see the text back up on the screen, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor.
No problem. And once we finalize and approve the new terms of reference as amended, then at that point, this committee would go through the process of selecting those two co-vice chairs. Yeah.
Yes.
After we approve the new TOR. Okay, perfect. That satisfies me.
I'm satisfied.
Looking to Trustee Danko to shake her head yes, so that's satisfactory to her. Sorry, Chair, to kind of step over you there, but
no, that's okay. I'm also in agreement.
Everybody's up there. The last point is just in terms of fixed dates. Now, as Trustee Danko has alluded to, sometimes that's tricky. And really what I'm looking for in terms of regularity is quarterly meetings. Now, we don't necessarily have to choose or select those meetings, I think, today, but as long as we embed it into the TOR, that the expectation of this committee is to hold a meeting each quarter, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, would that be sufficient from the clerk's perspective to be able to move forward in a manner that allows a certain amount of flexibility, but still really puts the pressure on that we will have meetings in each quarter? Through the chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Beatty. I'm in agreement. I think that structuring the 4 meetings as a minimum. If we see that, we require any additional meetings, we can make those choices as a committee. But I would like to see a structure in place where we know that we're meeting, we know we have those touch points throughout the year. And hopefully that will be beneficial to the type of work that we're envisioning for this committee. I'll turn to see if there are any other comments and a response from staff, just if that's feasible in our terms of reference.
So through the chair to the councillor, that can be done. I can add that to the terms of reference. I can also add a section that the meeting will also be called at the discretion of the chair. So should an additional meeting on top of the 4 want to be called, then we can do that as well. Okay.
Are there any other comments or questions to this point? Okay, thank you, everyone. And is there any additional area or section of the terms of reference that anyone else would like to discuss or unpack? Trustee Dinko?
Thank you. And through the chair, just an area that I think there's an opportunity, and I'm not sure how this may have functioned prior to the pandemic and prior to my membership on this committee, because that really disrupted the committee meetings. We didn't meet for quite a period of time, but there is an item under the mandate. Number 9, it says to develop ongoing collaborative and timely public communication strategies reflective of common purpose, work in progress, and outcomes. And that's not something that I've seen us doing as a committee or as the prior co-chair, but I wonder if that is something that is possible, what that might look like, and I was wondering if staff might be able to share what historically that might have looked like, because if it's one of our mandates, we'd want to make sure that we're following through on it.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Danko. And before I turn to staff for that response, I just wanted to welcome Sagawanaga Garladat Dante Hill into our meeting. Thank you for coming to participate. And I'll just turn back to city staff for a response. If we have a historical example of what that level of work would entail.
I'll take a stab at it, Chair, and I'm wondering, just in terms of the language that we use on the city side of the ledger, if this is something akin to an outstanding business list, where we track ongoing issues that may be of relevance to the committee, to our partners at HWDSB, and vice versa, from the board back to the city. I can't think of an instance off the top of my head. It could be school development, new schools coming to the area. That might be shared property. Updates from the joint property. What are you guys called again? Kate? Asset Committee, which oddly we never hear from. We have this administrative committee, the JPAC, that. And with no disrespect, oddly never reports back to this body as to what you guys are doing. Not that you have to, but I would maybe offer that would be an opportunity for some regularity for JPAC to report back into Liaison in terms of what they're working on.
It's number 10.
It is number 10? Yeah, well, I guess it is covered in number 10, but those are the two examples, an outstanding business list for number 9, perhaps, but some more regularity in terms of when JPAC meets, if there's some kind of report that would come back from our shared staff in terms of what they got cooking.
Or even if not a report, then at least an update, right? Because reporting carries that.
Reporting or a verbal
governance,
update, Chair,
yeah.
Something along that lines where with some more regularity, and we'd have the opportunity to possibly build this into the agenda setting, that we hear more regularly from JPAC as to issues pertaining to our collaboration between our two entities.
Councillor Tedison?
So for example, maybe this could be along these issues is, say we're doing construction and we're closing a road, the children along that road would need transportation, but the buses have been denied transportation down that road. What's the collaborative effort between the board and the city to ensure that those students are looked after? Would that be sort of a ongoing collaborative and timely public communication strategy that we would have to probably look at?
I'll turn to our end here. So Associate Director Gerard.
Apologies through you, Chair. Could I get that restated for me?
Councillor?
Just in terms of an example for ongoing collaborative and timely public communication for common purposes, work in progress. So some of that work in progress could be like, for example, we're rebuilding a road right now in Bimbrook, and there are families along that road that have no transportation access or access to transportation to their school now because the school board will not let the school bus drive down that road, even though it is open to, say, other transportation like cars and so forth, only for local access, but the school board won't send them down. So how does that family that lives there get their children to school if they've already been provided or told that they're allowed transportation? This is one of those situations where I think could come into play here. Would that not be a potential situation that would be an example of number 9 here that that Trustee Danko brought forward?
Associate Director.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And to the councillor, thinking of a scenario, are we talking about an assumed road or an unassumed road, or is there a particular scenario you have that might, and perhaps not in this forum, but would be able to help me to better understand? That may.
Well, I'll give you an answer. I'll give you an exact example that I'm dealing with right now. Bimbrook Road is closed for construction because they're urbanizing the road. That means that one lane is basically open and an extra half lane. It's closed to local traffic only. There are families that live along that road. The bus will not travel down that road to pick up the children. The parents are now being asked to drive their children, or the children being asked to walk down through a construction site to adjacent intersections. Parents don't feel that that's satisfactory to their needs, and they would. And we needed to communicate that to them before the road was closed, and I do not believe that happened in either case, from the school board's point of view or from the city's point of view, and we're left in a lurch right now with that particular family. So I'm just wondering if this is some of the collaboration that needs to take place that could happen here in terms of the city's response to share with the board that, well, look, we're closing this road in 3 months. I know that there are people that are designated to inform the board. It just didn't happen in this case. And I'm wondering why it didn't happen. And maybe this could be the conduit where it does happen.
So I actually won't turn to our HTSB staff. I do wonder if the nature of this committee just isn't the right avenue for something as you've described. Just, recognizing we haven't even been able to establish the 4 quarterly meetings. I don't know that we would be able to address every issue affecting both of us in this forum for a public communication. I think that has to be far more done far more in real time with either the councillor office and the trustee office and staff to staff communication. So I don't necessarily think that that's perhaps the best example, but where could we as a committee see, I guess, larger scale, longer term communications together jointly? I think Trustee Danko, you have a comment or question?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I can see an opportunity, and it really does speak to public communication strategies in number 9. So looking at this particular example, and I know Councillor Taddison's giving us an example where the challenge is happening now. This committee would have an opportunity potentially to, be updated on, here are the construction projects that are projected for the next year. We wouldn't necessarily need staff to tell us exactly what they're doing to mitigate any challenges for transportation or whatever that might be. But I think it would be helpful to have that on our radar, that these construction projects are going to be happening. There is going to be an impact to some of the families, in terms of attending school or transportation to school, whatever that looks like. And just talking about what is the strategy jointly between the city and the school board to make sure that we're communicating well in advance of that work happening. It's not something that we've done previously, but I see it as an opportunity. I think Councillor Beattie and myself, we've long hoped to see some additional concrete work that this committee can do that really benefits our community because we're working together.
Thank you for those comments, Trustee Danko. I think your point about this committee having the opportunity to strategize, to look ahead, I think that's where we would be most impactful. Councillor Beattie?
Yeah, thank you for that, Chair and Trustee Danko. And an opportunity that I think might be forthcoming, and maybe it's a pilot project or a test case, if you will, seeing how things may not have gone tremendously well with Pembroke Road's closure. I do know that the City of Hamilton has planned for the urbanization of Lewis Road in my ward, which abuts the Winona Elementary School. There have been plans in terms of scheduling. My office has been involved with in ensuring minimal disruption to the school. I think the construction start is geared to begin when the school closes for the summer to avoid impact. But with that said, maybe that's an opportunity if we're now looking at having an additional meeting before the end of the school year, possibly, hopefully, that specific case, the closure of Lewis Road and other forthcoming road closures that might impact school bus routes, school walking routes, more comprehensive information coming back from our city staff that we ensure that our colleagues across the table from the board have full notice and are fully aware, and even if there are maybe responses back from the board in terms of, yeah, we got this, we've got a plan for it. I don't know if that's overstepping at all, but having some robust conversations about the impacts of city infrastructure renewal projects and the impact that it can have on school operations. I think that would be one really good point that would tie in nicely with item 9 in terms of Trustee Danko's original concern. Hopefully that all makes sense.
Thank you so much. So that I think that does illustrate where we have the opportunity to strengthen joint strategies between both sides of the committee members. I do want to just come back to what we're talking about it being the terms of reference. So is there any other, line that anyone sees needs rewording, needs expansion? Any other areas that we would like to see either, removed or flushed out? I don't myself have any comments. I think the changes that we've made today will promote better work here and more regular check-ins. Okay. Councillor Beattie?
Thanks, Chair, and through you. Agreed. I think that the structural encumbrances to the committee that we've addressed today in terms of membership and leadership, once those are resolved, and I think they will be, should help us to move forward in a more robust way to stick to the current TOR that we have. We haven't been able to necessarily flush out a lot of the pieces that are already there. We have a lot of the good ingredients, and now if we've been able to reformulate in a manner that will allow us to function more better, to be grammatically incorrect, I think that this is a good first step, and it'll allow us to operate in a more fulsome manner. So really, really appreciative for the conversation on the TOR review today. And I know that as a result of that, we've already highlighted a couple of information pieces that I think would be excellent agenda items for our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Trustee Danko?
Thank you, through the chair. Under the meeting format, there is a reference to meetings being held at either City Hall or the HWDSB board office. That is a historic piece where the meetings were in person, they were not live streamed. I believe we had decided that this city would be hosting the meetings. Should we just update that language to reflect the format using WebEx, making sure that there's a platform for this to be live streamed so it's accessible to the public? I believe this is our standard that we've agreed to and that we're sticking with, so we could update the terms of reference accordingly.
Thank you for that comment, Trustee Danko. So our terms of reference should show that our meetings will be held here at City Hall and live streamed for the public using city infrastructure.
Sorry, Chair, through you to LC Versace. I'm just speaking in terms of we're holding it here in City Hall, and my language, but you can massage it if it is better too, using city infrastructure for the live streaming. Basically, we're taking ownership of the structure of the committee in terms of this. The City of Hamilton will provide the space, will provide the clerks, will provide the live stream technology to be able to make this happen. So whatever the wording is to codify that, I think we're getting close there, but that's the intent. I think where we're going is that the city's going to provide the support to make this happen. The onus is on us.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other points? Does city staff need any clarification from our end? Okay, thank you so much. So Councillor Beatty, I'm going to have you be the person who motions to amend our terms of reference.
Duly moved.
Thank you, and seconded by Trustee Danko. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. That passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for that fantastic discussion. And we are very excited to see all of those changes and work within all of those changes. So that does bring us to I guess, section 9, which is notices of motion. So we do have a responsibility to elect co-vice chairs, given our new, does this, wait, before I do that, okay. I'm like, this doesn't need to be ratified by anybody. Do I have any volunteers for the positions of co-chairs for this committee? Co-vice chairs, excuse me. Thank you, Councillor Beatty, for your self-nomination, and thank you, Trustee Danko. Are there any other nominations?
Chair, if I could just ask a clarification question. We're on notices of motion. I think procedurally we would have to take a vote first to suspend the rules to allow this to be a motion on the floor, I think. I'm just looking to LC Versace for clarification on that.
Sorry, so procedurally, we should do the co-chairs under item 8. And then once we get to the notices of motion, Councillor Beatty will have his notice of motion, and then that's when we suspend the rules and need a 2/3 majority vote, because he does have a notice of motion.
Okay.
Apologies. So we are still, for everyone watching and for those in the room, we are still under item 8. I guess we can describe this as item 8.2, which is the selection of co-vice chairs. And we have had Councillor Beatty and Trustee Danko self-nominate for those 2 positions. Okay, all in favor of accepting those? Thank you, Councillor Tedison. Are people allowed to second if they're self-nominating? Just to clarify.
Chair could second.
Can I second? Oh, okay. I will second then. And then we vote. Thank you. And now all in favor of approving those. Thank you, Congratulations, and thank you for volunteering to our new 2 new co-vice chairs. Thank you. And now we can go ahead and move on to item 9, which is notices of motions. Looking for a motion to suspend the rules. Thank you, Councillor Taddison, seconded by Councillor Beattie. And Councillor Beattie, please go ahead and bring forward your motion.
Certainly, and I apologize for not circulating this in advance. The background on this and the reason for the suspension of the rules, a certain amount of urgency, knowing that we don't yet have a fixed meeting schedule soon to come. We have had some ongoing conversations, myself, Trustee White, with our planning and economic development staff and our friends from the school boards outside of the equation. I can't remember, Dave, what your official facilities and whatever it is that you do over there. The guy that builds schools. The conversation has been this. There is a school site selected in the Stony Creek urban boundary expansion. It has been on the books for a long period of time, but there may be some encumbrances in a quick ability to have that school built. So myself and Trustee White have engaged in some conversations to begin explorations to see where the city may be assistive in helping the school board to get a site in what is identified as the Block 1 area within Scooby, the Stony Creek urban boundary expansion. This is just to formalize or codify that conversation. And it is such. Now, wanting to make sure that I've legislatively done this correctly, looking to the clerk's team, because it does give direction. And I think we had a conversation of whether or not this committee is allowed to give direction. But provided that the wording is appropriate, what it's effectively doing is just asking that planning and economic development staff report back, or we request a report to come back to this committee to explore opportunities to assist the HWDSB in the planning and construction of a new elementary school in the Fruitland community, which is Block 1 of the Stony Creek urban boundary expansion plan. And that would exclude any direct financial contribution. Just putting that in there purposefully, that we will assist where we can. Obviously, we're not going to be contributing to it. That would be in contradiction to the Education Act, and we wouldn't be able to do that, just to clarify. There we go. So we're going to make the recommendation to council, and council could bring this to planning and economic development staff. What do you think?
Thank you so much. So it is just turning to city staff, so it is appropriate that it go first to council, because otherwise we would be directing city staff from, okay, thank you. And thank you, Associate Director. Did you want to share perhaps some language to help ensure clarity?
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I am to ascertain from the motion that the intent is to work within site plan approval processes and or the city's pre-existing mandate functions, et cetera, not the actual design and construction of the building at all.
Absolutely. And through you, Chair, just to continue on the conversations that we already had, explore any opportunities that may exist to assist you with expediting the construction of a site in that particular area, knowing the challenges that pertain to the existing identified site, whatever's in our wheelhouse to assist. I'd like to put that on the table, but it doesn't pertain to the actual physical construction of the property or the facility. That's entirely in your wheelhouse. It's just to get you to that point. What can we do to help?
Associate Director.
Through you, Chair, and thank you for that. I wonder, just from a perspective of the implementation of this and all of the great things that you've just said, if that caveat could be put in there to greatly assist the collaboration that will surely happen as a result of this motion.
Councillor Beatty?
Yeah, if you have an example of language, that would be dandy, Matthew.
Sorry, just turning to city staff. Can we see the motion up again, please? And Associate Director is looking to offer some remarks to ensure that we're all on the same page. Go ahead, Associate Director.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Chair, and with thanks to the councillor. I wonder if wording such as within the scope and mandate of the city would appear in close proximity to where it says with expediting the planning and construction, comma, within the scope and mandate of the city would help quite a bit. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Associate Director. Councillor Beatty, do you have anything else on that point?
No, I welcome that friendly amendment and that suggestion from staff. I think it maintains the intent and spirit of what we're trying to accomplish here. Again, coming back to it, it's just how can the city assist HWDSB in trying to get this online more quickly.
Thank you so much. Turning to committee members, are there any comments or questions to the motion? Okay, seeing no other comments or questions, are we then prepared to vote? Oh, excuse me, go ahead. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Taddison. Apologies, I thought I had asked for a seconder already. Okay, seeing no other comments or questions, may I please see all in favor? Thank you, that is everyone. That passes unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Beatty, for bringing that to our attention. Are there any other notices of motion? All right. Seeing none, I believe that brings us to item 12, which is our adjournment. May I please have a, oh, excuse me. I don't need one. Oh, wonderful. It is 12:17. Seeing as there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 12:17. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your comments and questions, and we are looking forward to doing even more great work. Thank you, everyone.